order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The school board will convene to close session tonight to consider the employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility under Wisconsin statutes 19.85, paren 1, paren C, third high school girls basketball coach, middle school girls basketball coach, full-time special education aide, and technology coordinator position. Boys varsity basketball head coach and middle school boys basketball coach. Okay. So that everyone can hear, if you'll, board members will turn their microphones on, make sure your microphone is on. We have guest comments. Dan Wolfel?
Yes.
Come a little forward if you want to.
Sure.
Would you like a chair?
No, I'm fine. My name's Dan Wolfel, although you may not recognize me. I'm the chairman for the town of Sevastopol in that little building next door. So I'm here tonight on behalf of the town, but I'm actually replacing Jeannie Vogel, who sent you, and I apologize for the copy of my name on it, but she sent a memo to the school. Oh, okay, that's the microphone, sorry. Just addressing the issue of partnering with the town in a request for grant from the Public Service Commission to expand broadband. The letter is reasonably explanatory. The key thing here, just so you have a little more background, is that the town has decided to partner with Door County Broadband, which has already made a pretty sizable investment in our community for broadband. And in doing so, we're going to apply for a grant through the PSC. The town is putting up $75,000 of its money, and that will be matched by Door County Broadband. And then we will apply to the PSC for a matching grant, so roughly $300,000, which would then supply us, if everything goes right, 2 towers that would be directed at the more of the middle of Sevastopol than anywhere else geographically, because the lake shores at least have, for a large degree, high-speed internet. So we would come to the school and any other party that's interested, asking for letters of support towards this grant. And we also believe that the Door County may come forward with a little cash contribution as well. And we came to the school with the idea that, one, our residents, meaning the town, and their #1 priority was expanded broadband when we talked about our comprehensive plan. And then, of course, COVID came along, and then all your students fall, not all, but many of your students are in that same area that parents asking for whatever you can do to increase the availability of internet. So we'll ask you for written, obviously, support, but we're also asking for monetary contribution, because the way that the PSC grants go, they give you so many points for all of the different elements, and participation of the other groups within the community is one of the elements, not only from verbal or written support, but monetary. So we'd like to increase our chances of obtaining that grant. The grant application closes December 1st. We do not need the money up front if you decide to do something. We are putting it in our budget, but expect to spend it in 2021.
30 seconds.
I think that's roughly it. So, questions that you might have?
We'll give the board a couple of minutes to ask any clarifying questions. It's a pretty deep topic, so that way if there's a lot to discuss later. But if you have any clarifying questions for Mr. Wolfel right now.
You're too kind.
Do you have an estimate how much money is in this pool that's available?
You know, Dick, I do, but I don't recall. Jeannie was much closer to it. I want to say it's 21 million, but I could be completely wrong. It's a substantial chunk that they put back out, so. And I think we have a chance to get it, so.
Do you have your tower location set? Are you shovel ready?
No, oh, thank you for that. The tower locations have not yet been selected. They have come out today with a map that I just got before I got here. They're suggesting one of them is in the area of Town Line Road and north of Clark Lake, somewhere in the Clark Lake Town Line Road to the west of 57 was one of the sites that they thought. But the idea is that we're going to work in concert with Egg Harbor and Jacksonport to try and position the towers so we get the maximum concentration of people. It's not going to do us any good to stick one in the middle where we got 6 people that have, it's effectively impact.
So the real thing from the school is that if we give some money, whatever it is, it's just something that you can put in your application to show that the school is behind us, and it's actually shown some financial.
You got some skin in the game, and you seriously feel that there's a need there that needs to be filled. There is no other benefit to the town. I mean, this is not like we're going to own a tower or something, or no other connection. It's just a match the money that Door County Broadband will put in, and for whatever that sum of money is, then the grants match that. So the more we have, maybe we can do more, but there's no other benefit other than the same benefit you would accrue, which is increased high-speed availability. Okay. If somebody has a future question, either call myself or Jean Vogel, and she'll try and answer it for you. Our window's going to close pretty quickly here. So, okay?
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Steve?
Tracy, did you want to speak on something?
Yeah, and I don't need to come up close. I just want probably some more information about the referendum. The letter that got sent out on September 24th, Kyle, from you, I thought it was a little deceiving. The referendum is expiring and the school district will ask to renew that $2 million referendum for the next 4 years. It's $2 million each year. If I'm not mistaken, I've come to all the board meetings, $2 million each year for the next 4 years, so that's $8 million over 4 years, correct?
Correct, just like the 2 million is over each of the 2 years we had. The last referendum.
It was actually $2 million for 4 years, over 4
No,
years.
no. The last referendum was in 2018. It was 2 million a year for 2 years, just like this one is 2 million a year.
For 4 years. So
Right,
then my next
it's for a
question.
longer duration, but the same amount annually.
I see, okay, that's.
Because this one, the one in 2018 is expiring in this school year.
Yep,
So it's 2 million for the 18-19 school year, 19-20 school year, 20-21 school year. It expires. The next one, the only difference is the duration for a number of years.
so then I just want more, I went on the website, I looked, underneath the referendum. Can you, and you don't have to take up my time now, but could you send me something, email me what dollar amount you're looking at for all of these, all of the, I have here for maintain programs and services, increase our mental health support services for staff and students, update curriculum materials, continue to improve our district technology, and attract and retain quality staff. If I could have something, I mean, people are asking a lot of questions,
So you
so
want a
the more
breakdown of-
information, the better. Like that dollar amounts, what are you thinking, where you're gonna be putting the money?
Okay, well, it's going to be exactly where we've been putting it, because every year we have a text, like for curriculum, well, I'll send an email, but
Okay.
like for our textbook curriculum, we annually buy textbooks for a different subject area,
Yep,
so that's going to be
Every year.
continuing on every annual year. Our staffing needs, insurance goes up every couple of years.
yep,
Our rates, what we pay our teachers and our staff go up, so that's where that money will go towards those areas, just like we've been doing for the last, whatever years it's been.
okay.
Yeah, I can
You
share
just
some-
know what some kind of percentage that you think this is going up, because I know like normal, like my raises are 2% to 3% every year.
Sure.
That's what you get, and that's what people budget. So if you could just let me know what your,
Yeah, basically, we've been a little bit over the CPIU annually
okay,
with salaries. Our insurance this next year will be a 0, and then it'll go 2.9, 3.9%.
3.9, okay.
And we don't know beyond that because the insurance company won't give us those numbers yet. But I can email you all that.
Yeah, email me that information,
All
please.
right.
Thank you.
But I think the thing to realize is that if it doesn't pass, then those dollars are cut out of the
Current budget. I
current
understand
budget,
that,
so it'll be a deficit. So then things have to get cut from what they're doing. This basically maintains what's going on now, for the most part, because of the school formula, which is very complicated. I don't understand it. But the school formula today, it was a great idea maybe back when it started, but it doesn't support the ongoing increases in the cost of doing business. So if you had, like a company you work for, it would be like them having to be forced to cut their prices,
Which we
therefore
do.
bringing in less
Yep.
revenue, and then try to support everything that your job or who else's job on less revenue coming in.
Which
So-
that does happen, yep.
Huh?
That does happen, absolutely.
Well, they're not forced to by the government to cut their prices.
Pardon me?
Companies usually are, the government usually doesn't force you to cut prices in the private sector,
No, the economy does that for us.
sometimes, but it's
Yes.
the same thing.
Okay, I'm done. Thank
If you're hearing specific questions, Tracy, it would help Kyle if you send him those questions, so he can
Yeah, or
give
anyone can always
specific
call. I
answers.
haven't heard from,
Okay.
I only heard from a couple citizens at this point, so if someone has interest in school financing, absolutely can contact me.
Okay.
With that $2 million coming off our budget, if we don't have it to replace it, there's only one way to go with it, and that's cutting services and staffing. Our staffing cost is about 85% of our total budget, and that's where the lion's share is. I mean, we're going to heat this building and remove the snow and all the things that come with running a building, regardless if that money's there or not. So the only place we're going to have is staffing. And also, we got to watch out that if we don't have a decent fund balance, we'll end up in short-term borrowing. And that's like having a credit card, you don't pay the maximum off every month, and then it costs you more money to operate because you're short-term borrowing multiple times a year. We've been out of that habit, we don't want to get back into that habit. But that's what will happen if it doesn't pass.
Okay.
Okay, does anyone have anything they wish to have removed from the consent agenda?
Not to have anything removed, but in the regular meeting minutes from September 17, Carl, my name was misspelled in one of the motions. The one dealing with giving the authority to the administration for flexibility. Thank you.
Carol will make that correction, then the consent agenda will be approved by consent, including a Rayburg Foundation grant to the science department for advanced chemistry and physics topics. Is that a textbook or
It's some
the
curriculum
advanced chemistry and
resources.
physics topics?
Yeah, it's not necessarily a textbook, but it's resources to support.
Okay, great, thank you. We'll move to administrator reports then. Mr. Baer, would you like to start?
Absolutely, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity. I'd like to start by thanking our parents. Yesterday was unique, as many things have been this year. We invited our parents in for teachers' conferences, and you may not have seen a lot of parents in our building, but we were making contact via phone, having virtual meetings with our parents throughout the day. And our attendance was a little less than normal, but we still had good attendance and support from our parents. Hopefully, our parents know that they can reach out to us at any time with any questions. It doesn't have to necessarily be parent-teachers conferences. So, another thing that I'd like to share that happened just today, and is always really rewarding, is to see our seniors go through the mock interview process. And we have a number of local businesses that send us their HR contacts, and they go through an interview process with our seniors. And it's great to see our kids get dressed up, to see them get nervous, to see them prepared for that experience. And it really is a really life-altering experience and an important one to have. So I'm very thankful for Mrs. LeClaire, Mr. Phillips, Mrs. Melkor, everybody that works on putting those interviews together for our seniors. Mr. Lickey, of course, provides the interviews too, so I want to thank him. As well as like NWTC, Thermotronics, Door County Medical Center, and other local businesses really help out with that. Because I'm the first one to speak, I hope that I get to congratulate our cross-country teams. Both our boys and girls cross-country teams won conference this evening. So really proud of all of those kids. They've worked hard all year, not only to battle through the sport, which is a challenging one, but to battle COVID and to participate and stay safe and finish a season. So I'm very thankful for what they've done and their courses have done to get to this point. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case for all of our fall sports. We did have to conclude, or suspend, I should say, our football season because we lost some competitors. and really didn't have as many games to play. So we did move it to the spring season. We've already rescheduled, I believe, 5 games for the spring season, which may not be the ideal time to play football, but it will give our kids a chance to play again. So I'm excited for that. The next big thing coming up in our school, of course, is homecoming. And you know that I don't like to cancel anything, but instead I like to look for alternatives to celebrate. So we will be celebrating homecoming during the week of October 26th to the 30th. We have a number of things planned. One of the things that we're doing different this year is, you know, the seniors are going to be in this environment potentially for the whole year. So we are doing something special with just our seniors. We're going to have a day in the middle of the week to take our seniors on a senior outing and really celebrate everything they've done. I would share that with you, but the plans are a surprise, but we again have had lots of community donations to making this special event for them, so I'm excited. But we'll try to continue some of those pep assembly type activities, but they'll be virtual, and we're still going to do a hall decorating. We're going to paint our parking stalls outside. The kids are really excited to do that. And there's a couple other things. I'm going to start growing a beard after this meeting because they are going to do a penny war, I think, to have me shave a silly design in my beard for a day. So I'm more than happy to participate. Other things happening, you know, just I guess I'm going to save some time because I have a lot that I want to share with you in regards to a new instructional model. So I'll conclude there unless there's some questions.
Any questions for Mr. Bear right now? Not. Mr. Hills?
Thank you. We also had conferences yesterday. We ended up having about a third and a third and a third. A third were by phone, a third were virtual online, and then about a third in person. They typically had an older sibling or something that it made more sense to come in for conferences, so they scheduled an in-person conference as well. Also want to mention the comfort level that the teachers have with the current AV schedule. It provides a lot of consistency. We're not pulling as many additional students out of a classroom when something happens, so they've appreciated that. And another side benefit, I guess, is that with the smaller groups, the teachers are finding that they're able to progress faster than 50%. You would think they would only see the kids 50% of the time, so they'd only be able to move at a 50% rate, but it's probably more like 75, 80%. They're finding that they're not having to repeat things, go over things again. Some kids who already got it don't have to sit through listening to it again. So they're making good progress, which is wonderful to hear. Lastly, tying in with the homecoming week, also to create a little bit of spirit within the elementary school, we're going to do some things during that week. But kudos to Mrs. Gruters, Ms. Portal, and Ms. Wiesner. They are planning on setting something up at the Eco Lab, assuming that the weather cooperates, for the kids to have an opportunity to do kind of a trick-or-treat and event kind of thing out there. Part of the thought was we'd like to get kids out to the Eco Lab, as well as their teachers, but the other piece is not knowing what trick-or-treat was going to look like this year. We wanted to make sure that we gave kids an opportunity for that. So we thought that an event like that might work out well.
Any questions for Mr. Hills? If there are none, we'll move to Mrs. Plum.
I just have a couple of things to add. The first one is, you know, this is a year of firsts for a lot of us here. So my firsts are helping to coordinate our developmental screening and child find activities virtually. So that's a new one that the early childhood team and I are working together to make sure that we are reaching our newest pioneers, but then also setting up virtual observations so we can get a good assessment of the new students that are coming in. Additionally, really trying to wrap our head around having virtual community programs as well. You know, it's pretty exciting to think about doing it a little bit differently, but I'm thankful for the support and the willingness of our staff and some community members who really want to take that challenge on. So it's pretty neat to see that things are still going to happen, even though they're not going to happen in quite that traditional manner. The last thing that I wanted to add too is I was looking over the Gifted and Talented Coordinators Report, and I just wanted to add something that we are concluded our testing, and so testing went phenomenal. It went very, very well. Mrs. Tank was really efficient, and with Mr. Tucholsky's help, it went really, really smooth. But more importantly, Mrs. Tank has spent some time working on developing a differentiated education plan. So all of our kids who do qualify, right, are going to have a specific plan written for what they need. And that's going to be a collaboration of teachers, parents, and the students themselves. So we're really moving forward on making sure the reality of these kids are getting the plans that they need. And I really like the collaborative effort that it's taking to be able to do that. So, you know, that initiative we continue to, you know, to keep moving forward on. So I'm real proud of the progress. That's all I have.
Questions for Mrs. Margaret? If we don't have any, we did have the athletic directors and gifted and talented coordinators report in our packet. If we have questions on that, I guess we'll direct them to Mrs. Margraff or Mr. Bear in the athletic area, or Mr. Lukey. Questions on any of those? No? Then we'll move to the superintendent's report.
I just want to highlight that Myron Construction, our general contractor out there, has allowed Mr. Sanborn and Mr. Carlson to bring a couple of their classes out there. They actually got to weld on the project this week, so that's nice. They've also worked well with our elementary newspaper, our high school newspaper, and Pioneer News. They get to go out there every once in a while and then update the story on the feature. They've been touring part of the building. The superintendent of the project, Jeremy Policki, is always with them and guides them through, and it's been really nice. I had a student today with the interviews for the seniors who says he's interested in becoming an electrician, so I talked to Todd Smith from Evelyn today about my job shadowing. Todd has to check with Evelyn, his boss, and I have to check with Myron to see if it's okay. We're trying to work that out, so we are getting some opportunities for students to get out to the job site, so, and they're all pretty excited about when they get out there, so.
If anybody didn't watch it, there was a great walkthrough video online of the new building with Mr. Lukey and Jeremy, the construction manager. He did that Mike Madden time capsule thing, and hopefully this week, maybe next week, he did an interview with that individual on referendum questions. So if you can get online and see them, they're good. It was brought to my attention that someone was wondering if the school paid for that, because the individual does charge a little sum to do those, and it was not the school. An individual paid Let's Go to our county to do those for the school. Committee report, communications committee. Jerry, you were there. Do you want to comment on that?
I'm really impressed with the group. They really work well together. They're constantly thinking of new ideas and new things. And so the issue coming out now is really talking about what it's like with COVID, because that's the big issue on everybody's mind, is how are you doing an educational program with COVID. So there's going to be a series of articles and pictures and with respect to that. And that's coming out before the referendum of that.
Probably the end of next week, I think.
Then we're looking long-term about what to do about, before they tear the building down, what to do with that, because you should take advantage of it from a communications point of view. It gets a lot of, people go around when they went to school there before the rest of us, so they're working on that right now and thinking of ideas. Well, before it's too late, when you tear it down, we should have done it. So that was nice to see. And then also beginning to really think ahead of time in the centennial, what is it?
100 years, whatever that is.
Yes, that centennial is coming up in 4 years or something like that. So they're now, as a group, are starting to think about, we got to capture that moment before it's lost too. And so they're really an active committee. They participate well. I'm glad to be here.
We will have a special edition newspaper coming out in probably next spring, focusing on the history of what we're losing. We were gifted with a big fat file of history information. And then Mike Madden has a project going, which we'll probably do maybe some this fall over the winter, a walkthrough of that building from the roof to the basement, and he has history of how the wrestlers used to practice in the furnace room, and so that'll be a nice history piece. I think that's it for communications. Meet and confer. Want me to?
Well, I think, we met, and I think most of the concerns were around some of the challenges with teachers and staff testing positive and being, quarantined, and also, filling those positions with substitutes. And I think, it's just a concern that the whole staff has about dealing with the quarantine issues and that sort of thing. I think the staff members that we met with were very positive, very professional, and I thought the attitude was that they really wanted to do quality education for their students, hopefully in person, without having always to be kind of virtual. In some cases, and in tonight's new model, I think, the consideration of, for lab sessions and in the ag science department, the need for in-person sessions with those students. So I think, I came away with a very good, positive feeling that the staff is really dealing with this on a professional basis, even though there is an emotional component to it, obviously, trying to teach students under these conditions. So I thought it was a good, productive session, and the issues were addressed.
Good, good. Did you have something you wanted to add, Cindy?
Sure. I had a couple of additional takeaways. One of the recommendations that was brought forward by one of the teachers was a concern about the difference between teaching virtually and teaching in face-to-face instruction. And the challenge to the committee was, is there potential to hire virtual teachers? Teachers that would just be here to teach the virtual aspect. And Mr. Lutke and Dick and I talked about obviously the physical constraints about having to hire additional teachers, but wanted to be sensitive to the fact that, and Dick, you said this very well, that we are in a new era, and none of these teachers ever expected that they'd be led down a path where they would have to be teaching. And one of the things that I shared with Dick was, I think as a board, it would be really helpful and educational for us as board members to maybe have a few of those teachers come forward, if they would be willing, to just share some of the day-to-day constraints that they face. I mean, it was just the teachers that were present, that was just very edifying and educational for me as a board member to sit there and to hear some of the things that they face when trying to teach virtually. It reminded me again of the fact that that our teachers are very professional, and the fact that they face this day after day and embrace it and just go with it speaks volumes, which was another issue a teacher raised, was just acknowledgement, and that comes back to us as a board as well, and maybe some further discussion in the future. When asked what kind of acknowledgement would you like, it was really hard for the teachers that were present to just be candid about that. I really didn't hear that they wanted financial acknowledgement as much as some other kind of acknowledgement. And so Mr. Lukey was able to one more time reinforce the strategies that he and his administrative staff had used to try to reinforce and acknowledge the difficult challenges that these teachers face and how they have dealt with it. But again, it might be an issue, Lisa, that we as a board would want to have some further discussion. And then the other one I will just add real quick here is there was conversation around chain of command. And when parents call and want to have and express concern about an issue, and then they don't want their name released, and how that puts the administration in a bind, it puts the teacher who is in the middle in a bind. And so we just talked about with the staff about best practice and how to just continue to reinforce that it's about relationships and it's about communication, and is there a way that we can help parents feel more comfortable with releasing the names so that we can make all the more difference.
How many staff members were there, do you think?
2. No, there were other committee meetings going on that night too, because we had communication at the same time. And I think PTO was going on as well.
So these had pulled the general staff and,
Well, are they considered, you still consider union stewards of the groups?
They're union members, yes.
Yeah.
But I don't know that they're in there wearing that hat, but we had 4 concerned forms filled out, those were what we reviewed, and we had 2 staff members present. And meet and confer, remember, is not just for teachers, it's for all staff. And we've had other groups of employees come before, but this time it was just 2 teachers, so.
I think we captured them all, didn't we?
I think so. I know, you were at the last one, Keith, and we had a variety of staff at that one. Yeah, there was maintenance at that one, I know. And I think a cook too. But this time it was just 2 teachers, so.
We had some at one that I was at too.
Right. So it's, I don't know.
For all staff.
It's all for all staff, but this time it was teachers only that came.
okay. We'll move on to the budget report then.
Budget report, if you look on your September 2020 report, Fund 80, you'll see some activity in there. That's work on the Eco Lab for the boardwalk, yes, okay, no, there. And typically we don't have expenses in Fund 80 until community classes in the wintertime. Mrs. Margraff's working on those. Obviously with COVID, community classes will look different too, so we used funds in a different manner for that's a community effort as well. And then Carl, do you want to focus on Fund 49?
If you notice at the bottom, the $2.08 million in incurred construction costs for the month, that is not the exact amount that we paid out this month. Reason being is when you do a project like this, you have what you call retainage. You hold back 5% of your expenses to be paid at the end of the project before or after the building is turned over, to make sure that everything is up the way it's supposed to be, and you have final approval. At that point is when you make that final payment. Now this is just to the general contractor only, not to the subcontractors and stuff that we paid. This is for the general contractor only. And I learned this through the audit, that I also have to show the expenses, but then also show the liability each month as that liability increases, because we're still on the hook for that money that we have to pay. But we do have 5% that keeps, 5% of the total project that we will have to pay at the completion of the project when everything is done. So when you see the 2.08 million in cost, that's not exactly what we paid out this month. The easiest way, if you want to figure that what we paid, I can put that in. But if you go month to month, how the cash goes down in Fund 49, now there is interest that comes up in there. I will say also Fund 49 includes the referendum money, interest we made on that, and also the donations we've received from Thermotronics. So Other than that, everything is pretty much on schedule. We have not gotten the final paperwork from the auditors. We'll probably get that in November. They will probably come speak here at the December meeting.
Any questions on the budget? Any other comments from Mr. Lukey or Carl? Hearing none, then we can move to the existing building facilities.
There's not, everything at the consent conference room that was flooded back in August is back up and operating as a, what do you call it, isolation room, like it was originally planned for. We did have the fire alarm lights blinking in here today, but the alarm did not go to the company that calls it in when there's a real fire. So it's just lights blinking, but they got that fixed today.
What, then the building project?
The building project, so far to date, we've spent $9.3 million on the build. One bone of contention right now is the boiler. We want a boiler that in our bid process, we requested a boiler that was compatible for propane or natural gas. And the bid that came back did not include the parts for the exchange over. And right now there's a bill out there for $24,800, and it's being discussed between Myron Berkman, who gave the bid for the boiler, and Frederickson, who Bray hired to give out the specs on it. And so we've had one meeting on that. Well, we've met owners, architect, construction meeting was on Monday, Tuesday we've met about it again, and it's still being in discussion on what to do because they have a solution for how we can have both, but the extra expense is $24,800. And I don't think the school district should be on the hook for all of that, but.
We were very clear in wanting that conversion available.
That's correct, and Frederickson is saying they were very clear in their specs for the project that it was on there. Berkman and Myron is saying this is a oddity with the boiler, so.
Well, they should have told us it was an oddity when we were sitting in the room talking about it.
It's an oddity.
That's exactly what.
Paint the building purple, that'd be an oddity too, but we get a can.
That's exactly why we're arguing about it right now.
It's
We're
in the
discussing.
specs, it's in the specs, they're dead in the water.
It was our first kick of the can on it this week, and we'll continue working on it, so, yeah.
They can split it up between Myron and Kirkman.
There was discussion of that. I don't know where it's gonna finish at this point.
Because the architect drew it to do
The architect hired Frederickson, and Berkman did it, and Myron's their general, that's
and
correct.
it's right there.
That's why we're sitting there arguing about it, we're discussing it.
Doesn't seem much of an argument to me.
It is when you get the bill and you say, we're not paying it, and then they say, well, you have to. It's a sticking point right now.
Yes.
It's the first one we've had like that, so.
They were all in the room. The architect was in the room, Myron was in the room.
Oh, yeah, we had that with this, our planning team.
What's Myron's?
Myron says, well, they didn't like exactly how the specs were written, and I said, well, you got the bids on bid day, and then you're supposed to review them before you approve which one you select, and they said, yeah, but that's an easy detail to miss, and we go back and forth, and so, yeah.
Oh, it's a nice donation.
It was a good meeting. It wasn't productive, but it was a good meeting.
Well,
We're gonna have more on that.
continue on.
Yeah.
Be strong.
I did not miss that.
Yeah, be strong.
Yeah, so,
Anything else in the building project?
it's moving along
Yeah,
pretty
it's
good.
exciting to drive back
About
there.
once a week, I give some staff a tour. I try and keep it a group of 12 or 15, you know, and we go out after the workers are done, and every group that's gone out has been very pleased with what they're seeing, so. It's nice that the first floor, the first grade rooms are taking the shape of what it's gonna look like, and that's great, because when grades 2 through 5 go upstairs, you can't see that, because it doesn't exist, but at least they have like a model on first floor for it, so, yeah.
Is it technically closed in?
It's not closed in, until all the windows are in. Doors won't go in, because they keep bringing materials in. Doors won't last things good, so they don't dent them up and bang them up, but it won't be considered enclosed until all the windows are in. And they started putting windows on the early childhood 4K kindergarten side on the northeast corner. So those windows are in. And then they gotta work on the roof over the science wing where it ties into the 65 gym area. They gotta work on that first right now. So they're working on getting it closed in for winter.
Was it great?
They've had great summer, spring and fall, yeah, so we've had good weather, yeah. So they say they're on schedule.
So did you have anything timely and legislative?
Yeah, just 3 quick updates. I had mentioned in my report that the Fair Aid Coalition Board was meeting today virtually, and we did. And we met with Professor Goff from UW-Madison, who has been coming up with some different suggestions for those of us who are in districts that do not receive any equalization aid. As you recall, we've been asking for a $1,000 minimum per student, and so far that has not been something the legislature has agreed to. So we are now looking at categorical aids in different areas, such as transportation, special education, and a couple of other areas. And we had a very good discussion with Professor Goff today. He's very knowledgeable, very creative. And now, as a Fair Aid Coalition board, we will be meeting either the end of this month or early November to put together a new plan along with Professor Goff to try to work with the legislature to address some of those funding concerns that we have. So more to come on that. Secondly, a message came out this week that school boards are required by Wisconsin Act 185 to submit a report to DPI by November 1. I'm sure you're working on that, Kyle.
It's already done.
On virtual instruction and other school operations during the time that we were closed in 2019, 2020 due to COVID. And WASB has provided a series of questions that need to be responded to, including financial impact. So, sounds
I
like
already completed that.
you have, okay, great. It says school boards, but we know staff do the work, so thank you. And then finally, Tuesday night, next Tuesday, which is October 20, is our Region 3 WASB meeting. And some of us will be meeting here, and Stephen has agreed to help us with the technology aspects should we need that. And the first session is at 6:30. That is the voting session for the Region 3 representative. As you know, I am running with the support of this district. And Lisa will be here, as I understand it. Lisa?
Well, I have really good internet at home.
Okay.
I have totally reliable internet at home, so I'm not worried about connection.
Okay. So you don't plan to be here then?
I don't think so.
Okay. So I will need to be on at 6:30 to give a short presentation along with my opposition person running. And then the voting will take place, and then the meeting will begin at 7 o'clock. So if anyone is interested in coming here, you certainly can. I will be here, Stephen will be here, and anybody else who wants to be here, you certainly can join us, or you can do that at your home if you wish.
When again,
In here.
is it going to be held in?
I think, are we going to be in here, Stephen?
Pardon me?
In this room?
Yes.
Yes. So if you're more comfortable coming here, fine. If not, you can do it from your home.
So if we don't go to the meeting at all, you don't get a vote from us, right? We have to be there to vote? So-
One person
We
from
get
our
one vote.
board must
Oh, we get
vote.
Each school board gets one vote.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions? But there will be an update from John Ashley at the board meeting. There will be a government relations update as well, and then a chance to just network virtually with other people in our region. Any questions? Okay, thank you.
We will move along then to, we've got some policies. We had these policies last month to read and review and ask any questions or make changes. So this is the formal second reading where we will adopt them as part of our policy manual. So we'll just go through, if someone will start making a motion on 51.
This is a question. I think it's
Okay.
Is there, why can't we put this under consent agenda? So you just can, if you have a question on it, you pull it out of consent agenda, talk about it, otherwise you just like,
I would have to check with legal counsel, see if you can do
Well,
that
we
in
do that.
policy. My thinking is, and I'm not 100% on this, but I'll check with legal counsel, but I think on policies you cannot put them in consent agenda. I think the policies that they
It's
have.
easy to textually do it, but I don't think that's what.
I know, let me double check with our legal counsel. I'll ask her.
It's
if
a good
legal,
idea,
and I'll
at
ask.
least the second reading.
Yeah, second.
Well, I'll ask her first off it's legal, and I'll ask her second off what's best practice. So,
What we've been doing at CISA, because we do policies too, is the first reading, we will take each one individually, and then the second reading, we will take a motion for all of them. But it's always a motion.
Right, right. Well, right, you.
The consent agenda is an emotion.
Well, motion, you're getting a motion for the consent agenda, which it says I'm approving everything. Anyway, yeah, well, I'd appreciate it.
I'll ask so I can find out.
And then you can maybe ask if we can take one motion on all, on the second reading, like she said CISA does. We're not gonna do that tonight, but
Right, right.
No, let me double check.
we'll ask
You don't
about
go
it.
to jail.
I don't wanna go to school board jail, no. That's scarier than realtor jail.
Memorize Robert's rules if we come back.
So if we'll just, so we can keep moving, Jerry, if you'll start making the motion on 5113 and we'll just move around the room.
I'll make a motion to approve 5113, open the room, inter-district.
Second.
Questions or discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
And to approve second reading of policy 5200, attendance.
Second.
Questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Make a motion to approve second reading of policy 5200.01, full-time student.
Second.
Questions or discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Move to approve the second reading of policy 5330, administration of medication/emergency care.
Second.
Questions or discussion?
Has that policy been reviewed by your nurses here? See if this is.
Not our nurse, by Neola and Sue and I. No. The nurse isn't our employee.
I know,
Yeah,
but
see
I
what
mean,
you're-
just, it'd be interesting for her input of whether or not this makes sense, or is this contraindicated? Well, second question. Are these our policies, or these come from Symposium?
Neola is the company we work with to update our policies.
Okay.
And they end up being our policies when we update them. And Sue and I sit down quarterly. In fact, October 29th, we're meeting again with Neola, and they always are updating policies. And I don't know how long the district's been with Neola, but it's the most efficient way to make sure you don't miss any new policies that are coming up, because there's always new topics coming up. I'm sure if we referred to our nurse, she would send it to Dora County Medical to have them review it, because she's not going to want to weigh in an opinion on that. So we're better off with Neola.
And with most of these, we don't really have a choice to make too many changes because they're based on case law.
Okay, I take that question.
All of these policies from Neola are reviewed by their Wisconsin legal counsel.
Nurse, okay.
But the nurse should probably be aware of the policy since it affects her.
Should be aware of them, yeah. Hopefully she's aware.
I think we had a second on that.
Yes, he did.
Any other questions or discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Okay.
Should we tell the public, the author, what the discussion was on this one? This one says we'll have no CBD products terminated in use at school. So our school nurse wouldn't have that in her care if someone brought it in as a solution. Okay.
Move to approve the second reading of 5461, children at risk of not graduating from high school.
Second.
Questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Motion to approve policy 5517, student anti-harassment.
Second.
Questions or discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Move to approve the second reading of policy 5630, corporal punishment.
Second.
Questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Motion to approve second reading of policy 6220, budget preparation.
Second.
Questions or discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Move to approve second reading policy 6520, payroll deductions.
Second.
Questions or discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Move to approve second reading of 6605, crowd funding.
Second.
Questions or discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Someone on 6800?
Correct.
Move to approve second reading policy 6800, system of accounting.
Second.
Questions or discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay. The reopening plan for 2021.
At this point, we're at the end of the AV model. Our biggest challenge will be staffing and substitute teachers. We have met an administrative team and came up with a game plan. If we're short subs, what aides we can move where to cover where we're at. We've had a couple teachers who have been on quarantine who are teaching remotely. We still need an adult in the room to watch those kids. But we are getting to a point where if we keep on this trend, we may be short on staff. Anything else I should add? That's about it. And then when I say staff, we've had a cook be in quarantine. We've had now a bus driver who's being tested for COVID, not positive, but he can't drive the bus until he gets his test results. So we keep having spots in the lineup that are blank at times. And so our substitution pool for all the positions is low. We're very fortunate Kyle Slice is driving the bus before and after school tomorrow because Rock's out on vacation and Katrina's covering for another bus driver who already had a scheduled doctor's appointment, and so Kyle Slice is our next bus driver, and that's all we have.
That's fortunate that CEO guy.
He worked on his license over the summer to get it for this very occasion, and he's been very good about driving the shuttle bus for the staff that have to park over at the church. He's been driving that shuttle. Tomorrow he'll be on the bus route, so I'll be driving the van shuttling staff back and forth. So everyone's just stepping up and doing what they have to. The cooks, we have not found a replacement for when Liz Jorgensen resigned during the summer. We've had 0 applicants, and so they're already short-staffed in that area. So when they have someone who's been out due to contact with a family member, they're out 2 weeks, and the other cooks are just like our teachers and all the rest of our staff. They're all sucking it up and doing extra. So it's appreciative, but we are getting very low on substitutes.
Has this Department of Instruction, DPI in Madison, given any type of relaxation of the regs to allow you to use non-licensed people as subs? Because, you're in a district here where there's a lot of people in the retirement ages, but there, a lot of them have associate degrees, bachelor degrees, master degrees, some PhDs, who probably would be willing to come in and at least, you know, they're not dummies, so they could at least act like they're a substitute. Because the state's done that in the health world. The health world now can allow nurses and doctors to come in out of state without state licenses, but licensed in another state to come in here. And because of COVID, and I would think the state would say, yeah, go ahead, as opposed to closing down.
If you have a bachelor's degree, you can get a substitute teacher's license, yes. The older crowd, the retired individuals, aren't so interested in coming into a school. They're very careful in this regard. We've reached out, Mrs. Margraf sent out an email to staff saying, if you know any college-age students that are graduates of here that have been sent home because of quarantine and they're home now because of their colleges, would they be interested in being a substitute teacher or substitute for an aide position? We haven't got any responses of that, so we're reaching out. We have to discuss as an admin team, do we hire a substitute to be here every single day and make sure we have them? The problem is within our substitute pool of substitute teachers, they want the flexibility of not working every day. So that's not an incentive for them to have them here every day because they don't want to be here every day. They want the flexibility of taking jobs when they can and taking days off when they need them or want them. So,
Just to add that about 3 years ago, Wisconsin did allow substitute teacher certifications to staff members that have a 2-year technical degree as well, which it used to just be the bachelor's degree. But they added an additional requirement for training, and we were able to put that training together, and I offer that training to anybody that might be interested. So if there's somebody in our community that would like to get certified, we can do that at no cost, where otherwise it would be approximately 40 hours of training and then an additional cost to that person. So we are searching high and low for substitutes to try to fill those positions. But as Mr. Lakey said, somebody that doesn't have a technical degree or a bachelor's degree could still come and serve as an aide substitute. And we have aides that are certified to be teachers or to go in a classroom, so we can flexibly move those people. It's not ideal, but it does keep our building open longer.
And, you know, the other, for folks who want to work here, you know, we do have a couple substitute associates that do want to work here and would love the hours, but with AB, they have, you know, on the days where their children are home, they have to be home too. So there's some days where we can make that happen, you know, easily, and then there's some days where it's real challenging to find staff. So there's so many different variables that, you know, that are in play when we're finding substitutes in the morning to fill spots. And Mr. Bear and I am appreciative of the work that we can do together to make sure that, you know, folks are in the building.
It's the last thing I do before I go to bed. It's
Yep.
the first thing that I do in the morning at 5 o'clock every day. That's where Melissa and I start. We start texting back and forth. Because there's internal solutions sometimes. If there's a student that's not in because of the AB schedule, there might be an aide that we can move into a teacher's classroom. It's really a puzzle every single morning we get up and we start right away, you know.
We're getting really good at it.
We are good. We're a great team. We're awesome. But there are less and less solutions available to us because we just don't have the depth of candidates or substitutes available. So it's really challenging.
Have we ever gone, I don't do it when my wife's addicted to it. Have you ever gone out on Facebook asking for the 50-something?
We have for our other position, not teachers, well, not
No,
teachers
no, just
recently.
talking about, I'm thinking about just turning, because this is a crisis, turn to the community and say, we need your help, you know? If you know, we're not, can you help us out a few hours a month or something as a temporary teacher? Or as a volunteer teacher? I wouldn't even push it to get paid for doing this. This is a community thing for the community school. And you may only sign up one day a month, but that's one less slot you got. Now, it'll create some headache for you from a scheduling point of view. But just as an auxiliary at a hospital, there's got to be people out there who's not totally scared off by this. And I don't know, how many teachers have gotten COVID from the students yet?
You talk about in the state or for our district here? We've had 2 teachers positive. One we know caught it from their spouse, and the other one we don't know if they caught it from the student or if they gave it to the student.
So it's a pretty good batting average that you're going to be able to come in here. I just think it's a community thing, and we should let the community say, can you help us? We go to them. And I suspect there's some people out there who'd be willing to do that. Maybe I'm wrong.
That, I think you talked about someone with a 2-year technical degree, you even been able to do some training.
Mhm.
Maybe people aren't commonly aware of that. Maybe that's something you can put out as a call on Facebook to say we can offer this training.
Yeah, and actually I put it in the newsletter too, which will be going home. I wrote an article for this upcoming issue, so that'll be available. I also was going to speak at NWTC for their Learning in Retirement.
Oh, that's great.
But that was canceled.
It really shuts down.
So, I mean, really, some of those opportunities, we've been really as creative as we can be, and we will continue to look for additional ideas, and I like the ones that have been presented tonight. This really is probably one of our biggest challenges in remaining open.
Well, plus there are 3 other schools in our area that are, drawing subs too.
Well, there's still
in the
4,
same
because
position.
Gibraltar's still hiring substitutes.
Oh, they are.
They are hiring substitutes in Gibraltar still.
The other thing too is, I mean, in a school year, we plan only a couple long-term leaves. If we have a maternity leave, it might be 2 or 3 a year. Now, every time one of our teachers gets quarantined, it's 14 days, and that's an extended absence. So for somebody to be available on immediate notice for 14 days is really challenging. So right there, though, we take 1, 2, 3 substitutes and try to fill 14-day leaves.
Yeah, that's
And then try to fill the normal sick leaves, funeral leaves, all the other leaves that take place in a school year. It becomes really, really difficult, so.
Are we allowed to post the notice of polling place in the newspaper?
Notice for polling?
No, notice for
For
this
substitutes?
situation, yeah. I mean, if we put something there, I'm thinking the polling place.
Oh, at the town hall?
Oh, notices in the
Notice
polling
for
places.
substitutes, oh, okay, I know what you mean, now.
I mean, we can put it at Egg Harbor polling place, we can put it at Jackson Point. Yeah, I mean, I think we're allowed to place a public notice.
I mean, I'm gonna run that past legal too, though, because if you have a referendum question, and you have the school's name on a poster near the voting booth, I don't know, I don't wanna cross that line.
With that,
Most of our substitutes committed to this district come from relationships. And that means that we've either established a close relationship with these people. Melissa and I work really hard at making them feel valued and important part of our community. And, it comes from people that have some tie to our community or our school. They're the ones that are consistently in our building day in and day out. So that's important too. I mean, if there's somebody that that's out there that wants to be involved with kids, give them our name, have them come talk to us, whatever that might be.
We'll reach out to them.
Absolutely.
With respect to learning and retirement, I don't know who you work with, but whoever runs, I forget, one of our former employees runs that program.
I know who runs it now.
See if you can write up a plea and they email it, they got everybody's email addresses in learning and retirement. And send them mass mailing through their website or whatever.
You've been in there, you could get that done, couldn't you?
I do have it in there. I can get that done. I think Mr. Leak has it in there too, so.
Learning to
Not as
retire.
good as yours.
That's for old folks. What are you guys kidding around with?
We got wives that work.
So learning and retirement?
That's where my wife works, right?
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
That's her department over there. We'll go through Mr. Bear's wife. Better connection.
So we'll roll the reopening plan into the new business of the modified instructional model.
High school staff and Mr. Bear has worked on what we call Model 4. They've worked extensively on this last couple weeks, and they presented to me yesterday, and I really appreciate their effort, and I really appreciate the plan they have. Last week I had some concerns, and they did too, about accountability of students, but now they've tightened that up and ratcheted it up, and I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Bear to walk you through it, because it is still complex, but he'll get you through it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Mr. Lidke. I appreciate that. This plan is derived from our staff wanting to do more for our students. No more doesn't mean necessarily easy, and I appreciate Mrs. Ayler's comments about how it's very difficult to teach both virtually and in person. That's preparing 2 different lesson plans each day, and it's taxing for our staff, for sure. This plan was it came from the school district of Kimberly, and it had to be modified to fit Sevastopol because obviously Kimberly's resources are way beyond what we have. As far as space in order to social distance, as far as staff members, they may have 3 teachers that teach freshman English. In their situation, they are having 1 staff member just teach virtually, and then they're having 2 staff members teach the in-person learners, and they are hiring out some of their virtual learning. So it's much different as far as resources. So it doesn't fit Sevastopol perfectly. But I just really want to compliment our staff because they realize that this isn't going to be easy. But they want to do more. They are committed to this process, and I'm thankful that they brought this forward. So we've been working together for about 3 or 4 weeks to try to solve the solution of having more time with our kids, as well as the consistency of learning, because if you teach something on a Monday and don't come back to it until a Thursday, that's not ideal for some of the complex learning that's happening in our school. So what this entails is that we are going to move right now. We are roughly teaching students 2.5 days a week because they get Monday, Thursday, and every other Wednesday, so we'll say that's 2.5. In this scenario, we're going to have contact with students 4 days a week. So today, for example, was an A day. We're still going to use the A-B model because social distancing is essential. We saw the number of quarantines that took place when we had 100% in person. We were sending home on average 8 to 12 students. It's very disruptive for learning for those 8 to 12 students, as well as the families, because some of our businesses say, parents, you have to quarantine too, so they lose employees, they lose income. There's a whole domino effect. So we have to maintain the 50% A-B model that we have right now. Recently, and Mr. Lidke probably shared this with you before, but with our most recent cases, we've quarantined almost no students at all. So we've been very successful at social distancing. We got to continue that. So the way this plan works, today was an A day. So our A day students are going to be in person. They'll be here in our building. But in this plan, our B day students will be required to log on virtually. Okay, so today, A day students are here. B day students are virtually logged on to all their classes. Tomorrow, B day students are here. A day students are logged on virtually. All right? The way that, the challenge that we then have is our internet access. And that's really the trigger that we've struggled with over and over again, is how do we solve that problem? So in this model, what we're going to do is, and I'm going to go through some math, we have 180 kids approximately in our high school. Okay? On an A day, we should be bringing in half of those kids, or 90 students. All right? However, we have about 10% of our kids that have chosen 100% virtually already. So you have to take that off the top. So that gets us around 80 students. So to go back to our capacity of 90, we can add 10 students to our school on an A day. Okay? We're also going to make an additional 15 seats available in our IMC that are socially distanced. So that's an additional 25 seats. So we would bring in our 80 students. Then we would bring in 25 students from the B day that don't have internet access. So those B day students that don't have internet access are technically, they're going to be in the building 4 days a week. Okay? And we do the opposite on a B day. We bring in 25 A day students that don't have internet access. So that gives us 20 or 50 kids within our community that we can reach out to and pull in and still maintain that social distancing requirement that keeps kids safe, and it prevents the extensive quarantines that we were looking at before. Now, doing this is challenging because an in-person learner is going to learn much faster and have access and support that you don't have at home. When you're sitting at home in front of a computer, it's harder to get the teacher's attention. It's harder to have that discussion with your peer about what you just learned. So that automatically moves slower. We've seen that in every single situation. If you're at home, you're going to move slower. So we have to even that out a little bit. So that's why that middle day on Wednesday, we're going to provide interventions. That's really important to us because otherwise we feel like we're going to leave kids behind at a faster rate than we ever would before. So that's why we're asking for that time on Wednesday to make sure that we can even out that learning population, bring in those kids that need extra support and give them the help. So that's the next piece that I want to talk about, which is at the bottom of the page. And really, we thought, we're going to do something for those kids that need interventions, but wouldn't it be nice to do something for those kids that deserve enrichment too? So we're doing a little bit for both sides of our population. So on that day, we're able to do that. Students that have a grade of a D or an F or have unexcused absences will be required to come in for all 8 periods. This will be smaller group instruction. They'll move through all of their classes, and teachers will be able to catch them up, get them to the point where they need to be. Then we're going to engage our we're going to do our enrichment virtually. So we're going to continue with all of our AP course offerings, all right, because they really require daily interaction and a pace at which demands that they're in school for 5 days a week. But that Wednesday will be virtual for them for a couple reasons. We didn't want it to be a punishment and say, you're in an AP class, so you get to come in all day on Wednesday, okay? We also didn't want them coming in for a portion of the day, coming and going, especially with the winter season around the corner. It would be really hard to track that, ensure safety, accountability, all those pieces. So what we are going to do is just bring them in virtually, work with them on the assigned work for that day, and then bring them back, of course, the next day and have them here in person. So that's our plan. Now in doing so, we still on Wednesdays have to maintain our social distancing. One of the goals that we have is to make our labs available, and that again is we're going to work on these routines, attendance, make sure that we have accountability with parents and with teachers, because we don't want we want kids in to use our lab facilities. That's really important to us, but we want to make sure that that transition is safe and timely and appropriate. So plus we're not overwhelming our school as far as bringing too many kids in at one time. So we're still working on those systems and want to observe that as we get started. But I'm really thankful that we had a lot of staff willing to try this, but I want to just remind everybody that this is new, this is different, and it may not work. And what I don't want to do is I don't want to burn out our staff. We're not in March of last year where we're looking at 3 months until the end of the school year, where we've got a full school year ahead of us. And this is a tremendous increase in the workload that we're asking our staff to do, and I'm going to be very conscious of that so that I can keep teachers here, quite honestly, and keep them going in the right direction. So, but I do believe that the majority of our staff is behind this plan. They've definitely been involved. I've shared it with the entire staff twice. I've met with the team that I shared on the front of this page, and I mean, we met 3 times in the last 6 days. So, we are on top of this, and we continue to vet it and test it and schedule kids into it and look at all the workings of how this might fail or prove to be a great benefit. But we really think right now the advantages outweigh the disadvantages of this model for sure. Any questions? Sorry, that was a lot. Please, Cindy.
I have a question, and this is in follow-up to our meet and confer and some of the eye-opening I experienced around the challenges that teachers were having with virtual. And I wondered, and I don't want to appear a micromanager here on this, but I was just so concerned about the lack of cooperation by some students during that virtual, like turning the camera backwards and then not being in a position to, the teacher not really being in a position to know whether or not the student was even hearing or participating. Yes.
Yeah, I hear that a lot. The teachers have it's hard to manage the virtual students in some cases.
Absolutely.
So my question, Mr. Bear, is, one is, could we have students sign like a code of conduct that are participating virtually, and if they don't follow that, could then they be referred to participate in some of these gaps on Wednesday and flipping the A versus the B?
Well, actually, that's part of it. If they're, that's that attendance piece. So if they're not participating in their virtual day in the way in which they're required to, then we bring them in on Wednesday and we give them that direct instruction. So
That's considered an unexcused
yep,
absence.
that's considered non-excused absence. And we actually wrote guidelines for virtual participation, which means, you know, having your camera on, participating in the discussion, using your given device. We've written that out as part of it. But you're right, that's one of the limitations because kids don't have the same supports at home that they have here at school. And so that's one thing that does concern me and it concerns the entire staff. And that's probably the crux or the reason why I say that they're moving at different paces in part. The other part is connectivity issues. You know, to answer a question, somebody that's virtual may raise their hand and they're speaking, but we're still waiting to hear them. There's a delay, you know. So it's never a perfect solution. So adding that
element
element.
about code of conduct, I think, as you go along, learn. I think it would be positive to have the rules of if you're going to do this at home, virtual, all in 1, 2, 3, 4, signed by the student and signed by the parents.
Well, we have
So to
that.
me, if you violate that, that'd be the same as not attending a class here with the ramifications of truancy or whatever you want to call them.
The other thing that's happening is they're not only causing frustration for the teacher, they're dragging down the kids. That sounds bad, but they're holding the class back. They're holding the whole class back because the teacher is having to go back and try to get control of what's going
Some kid
on.
acts out in class.
Yeah.
And it's done virtually. So I think they need to know what they're saying, and the parents need to know, and it has to be also say, what happens if this is violated?
Well, and I appreciate that. We have an application process for those students that are absolutely 100% virtual. In this situation, we're requiring them to be virtual. So we're saying we need you to learn you're required to attend school 4 days a week, and 2 of those will be virtual, and 2 of those will be in person. So if we have a student that is not attending virtually the way that they need to attend, the controls that we have are conversation with parent, student, bringing them in on Wednesday, but we can also make them one of our 25 students that are here. You've shown us that virtual learning isn't working for you, so you need to be in person 4 days a week, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. They'll be one of those 25 students potentially. So yeah, and that's going to take some time to figure out, but those are probably the steps that we might go through to get there. It's not going to be perfect because on any given day, there could be distractions in an environment, and I know that it's going to present more challenges than we know, than we can anticipate right now. And that's why we as a staff did sit down and write, these are our virtual expectations. We are discussing them at a meeting again on Monday, but we're going to have to consistently reinforce them. Just like with all of our rules, we have to consistently reinforce them. So.
Adam, what would be your plan for communicating all of this to parents? Because I think that will be a key for them to understand all
Absolutely.
of this for their particular child and children.
Yep, I'm waiting for that communication piece until I have the board's approval, obviously. But I have already written the parent letter. That letter is going to go in front of my staff on Monday night so that they understand what's going to be communicated out and add to it. A big part of the communication is just direct communication with our students, so I'm going to ask the staff to participate in that. But we'll be sending a letter, and our rollout date for this plan would be the beginning of second quarter, which is November 2nd, Monday, November 2nd. So we have about 2 weeks to communicate. So, other ideas, Sue, for communicating out?
When you say send a letter, is that U.S. mail or email or?
Yeah, it'll be both probably.
Oh, okay.
The other part with Wednesdays, communicating on Wednesdays for those students, there will be a notification sent to them on Friday before the Wednesday that they have to attend, because we know that it has babysitting parameters and all sorts of other things that might be work parameters. Right now, some of our kids are working on their off days.
Well, and we also know that every Friday the list will change.
Every Friday the list will change.
Right. The goal would be if you're on the DF list, to get off the DF list, so you don't have to come in on Wednesday. That'd be the goal.
And when they do come in, it's all day?
It's all day right now for the intervention students, correct?
Because I mean, one consideration obviously is logistics of transportation.
Yep, that's it.
Just a question of how it works, so I understand. So, if little Jerry Warwick is taking his junior geometry class, this is today's geometry class, and I'm in group A, so on Mondays I'm here, on Tuesdays I'm at home, correct?
You're at home attending virtually.
So the same class that's being held here for B, I'm watching at home. Is that how it works? It's not a whole different.
It's a second lesson.
Yeah,
We
it's a
find
new lesson.
there'll be 4 lessons a week, one on Monday, one on Tuesday, one on Thursday, one on Friday. 2 you'll get in person, 2 you'll get remote.
And it's the same.
And it's so your class of 24 are all there, 12 in person, 12 remote, and the next day it's the opposite. Still a dozen each, but so you get 4 lessons in a week. Because right now the teachers are saying we're getting 2.5 lessons in a week. We want to get to 80%.
So Sue, Mrs. Today would carry on with her instructions for 4 days a week, and it's just that those students would log in at the start of her class period and stay logged on with her for her entire class period. Log off for a 4-minute passing period, log on to the next class, and attend all those virtually.
And they can log off in the study hall or lunchtime if they don't have to log in.
Is this for all student, like, or is this middle school, high school? Or
This is just high school.
High school, and if it works, we may expand it down to middle school, but right now, we're just seeing it works with the high
So
school.
elementary would stay, or, I mean, is middle school considered, or?
We consider our high school one, middle school a different entity, and our elementary a
So this
different.
is
So this is
strictly
just 9 through 12, yep. But we'll see if it works. If it works in November, we may expand it down to the middle school, but then you have to remember, we've only given out devices for grades 6 through 12. We haven't did that, and like Mr. Hiltz was saying, the elementary, because they have less kids in the room, they're getting through more than 50%, even though they're only seeing the kids 50% of the time. They're getting through more of the curriculum because they have a smaller group to work with.
So
And if we
middle
approach-
school and elementary would continue the 2 days 1 week, 3 days the other week,
Correct.
like they're currently doing.
Right.
Middle school would, and elementary would. And if we try to solve this problem for middle school, we have a whole another set of new challenges. That's 3 grade levels and 145 students. So more students, fewer grade levels. Still have to have space for them. You know,
Right.
Kimberly has an auditorium, they have multiple gyms, you know, they're using all these spaces to bring in virtual learners. We have, you know, in addition to that, if you talk about high school students, they may have younger siblings in the house. They're now trying to learn for 8 hours a day with the distraction of babysitting someone. This is not perfect. There is no perfect solution. We feel that the advantages outweigh the disadvantages. I will say there are
We gotta try
definitely
something.
both.
This will get more instruction to the students.
So what are we seeing with the kindergarten kids, grades 1 and 2 and 3? I can't imagine them being virtual.
There are some, Mr. Hiltz.
There's some that have chosen remote, but.
I mean, not being here every day.
Right. Even not being here every day, right now, the teachers are only seeing a child every other day, basically, and that's when the instruction is happening. So they're not online the opposite days, anything like that. I think it would be difficult for us to go to that model. Certainly, we can take a look at if there's other options, but it's tough. Those younger kids are going to need somebody to monitor them while they're online. Other things that we learned even back in the spring is when you've got a family that's got a high schooler, a middle schooler, and an elementary student, the high schooler is going to get preference to be able to watch live. A middle schooler might get that second preference. That elementary kid's going to be the one that doesn't get access. So.
You know, this is going to be an editorial comment, but I really feel in the like 5th grade and under, or 4th and under, this is where the cure is worse than the disease. I mean, the data is starting to come in across the country. Families are just being ravaged. I mean, if you think about it, you got a job and now you got to worry about your first grader, second grader, kindergarten kid, because they can't go to school. I realize that our job is babysitting, but it kind of always has been. And there's no place to take them. I think the Boys and Girls Club is closed. I don't know about the YMCA, but that costs more money. We're just building all these problems on the families. And I talked to some people from the police department that given the amount of child beatings, wife beatings, all that stuff is just going up. So I don't know, I just plead, I know, I feel you guys are, I think we need to sooner than later find a way what to deal with these little kids. Because this is their formation years, and I know they're going to do it all over again, I think, I don't know.
Well, and the flip side of that is fortunately we get them in here half the time.
Right.
You know, the connections that they're still able to make with
But
other
yeah, I'm talking
students
about
and
the repercussions back in
long
the
term,
family.
yes.
Yeah.
Right, you need to learn to read by third grade. Otherwise, you're always behind.
Correct. Yeah,
I know.
That's right. I agree. That reading is
That's
so
that's
important.
a fact with all your other subjects. If you don't read by third grade,
Yeah,
you're,
so if you're not reading by the end of third grade, if you're reading by the end of third grade, no matter what your economic background is, you are going to be able to compete in the world. If you can't read by third grade, you're going to be forever behind.
So I'll frame this by saying, this is not questioning what our staff is trying to do, because I know they're all working as hard as they
Right,
can, and
yeah,
the situations are difficult in school and out of school and at home. But it's a question that came to me, and then it came up in communication committee last week. And this would be for little Jerry, who's taking Mrs. Today's geometry class, or little
And I hated
Richard.
geometry class, but I liked it.
Or little Richard, who's in Mrs. Ayler's second grade class. And I think the question came, if you graduate Mrs. Ayler's second grade class, are you really in third grade? How much of the curriculum was covered? Or how much of the geometry curriculum was covered to make you ready for algebra? So, does our staff have a plan where they're looking at their curriculum and saying, these are the things we have to get through
Absolutely.
to get that kid ready for the next level?
Absolutely.
Across
And that was
middle
since the
school,
beginning
high
of the
school,
year, we've
elementary.
been talking to them about making sure that you focus on what's key, what has to be covered. You know, put the things that are nice to be covered farther to the back. Obviously, the math and the reading at the elementary level have to take priority over anything else. You know, where there's time, possibly on Wednesdays, because those are odd days or have been odd days, that might be your science and social studies day where you can fit those things in, but at least then it gives you 4 days of being more consistent with the kids. So they've taken a look at those things from the very beginning and trying to make sure that those kids are as prepared as they can be under the circumstances.
Then my other question is, I think in the CAP classes, like the Oshkosh classes, they're just a pass. They just get a grade here and that moves on, right? But the AP classes, they test out of. They test, right? So have those boards, are they making any adjustments to their requirements as to whether you get a 1, 2, 3, 4?
No. No. I
So
haven't
our
seen it.
teachers that are teaching the AP are stepping it up
Well,
with those
absolutely.
students to try to still get them the 3, 4 to pass?
That's why we're gonna do 5 days a week with our AP
Okay.
kids. Absolutely, we need to. We can't continue at this pace. So I mean, what it would show on those tests is that less kids have met the college credit requirement for an AP test and passing it. Some of our CAP classes are a little bit different, our articulated classes, but then WTC, dual credit classes are a little different because a lot of those courses are actually semester courses that we stretch over an entire year. And so we feel confident that we're able to cover those. Like for example, on WTC English, that's a semester course, but we cover it in a year, and then we add in our state standards, which some of them are overlapping. So we feel comfortable, we've studied that. AP though, it takes a full year to get kids ready to pass an AP English course, basically a freshman English course. And so we need that time, and that's why Wednesdays are going to be,
And
that's
it's
why
just
we're
that
going to continue on
wasn't
Wednesdays.
a question, teachers, it wasn't placed more pressure, it's just a
No,
question
that's a
that
great
came,
question.
so.
But that is the pressure the teachers feel, because they're like, they're trying to keep on their curriculum course for the year, and it's
I know.
it's hard to do it all.
And in complete transparency, we
give you guys an impossible task.
Yep, in complete transparency,
It's an
we can't do
impossible
it.
task.
If we sat here and said we did it with 100%
I
certainty,
understand that, but I think then giving up, then what other gravy, what Christmas lights and trees come off of the Christmas tree so the Christmas tree can still stand? So I just think reading, writing, arithmetic, if the rest of, at least the undergraduate through grade school, those are the three things: reading, writing, arithmetic. That's all we accomplish. That'd be great, because I don't think you're going to be able to accomplish much more of that, given the cards you get.
And that works more at the elementary level, because that's what Mr. Hills was talking about, when he said science and social studies would be a Wednesday.
In fairness, our teachers have even looked to see where are there some things where a reading lesson might incorporate science or social studies. So there are some ways to double up some of those things. There are every teacher has some of their favorite lessons that they do, and they take a little bit longer, and some of them have pulled some of those things out because they're not essential to what the kids are learning, so that they can focus on those things you described.
yeah, to further exasperate this, we use softwares in some of our programs, like let's talk about drafting and AutoCAD, that we can't send the kids home with. They can't use that on a Google Chromebook. So we've had to step away in some situations and say, this is our software, our platform for teaching drafting, because they've got to have it now at home and they've got to have it at school. I mean, they need a table saw for woodworking. We can't give them a table saw at home. And 50% of the time, they are not going to be in front of a table saw. I mean, it just is compounded over and over and over again. So this is not going to be perfect, and you're going to hear of challenges. And it's not perfect, but is it better? The staff, we think, right now it's better, but it's not perfect. It's better than seeing them 2.5 days. We're seeing them now 2.5 days plus virtually for another day and a half. So it's growth, but it's not ideal.
We had this exact discussion yesterday at the MWTC meeting about the laboratory classes, the auto mechanics and all that stuff, and nursing. They're all coming to school. Those continue on the other stuff, the English and all that stuff is on home.
Right.
But I raised the question that you raised: is the electrician at the end of 2 years going to be the same electrician that we just graduated a year ago before all this started?
This was a lot of work. Thank you to the people that.
Absolutely, thank you.
Thank you to the people that put it together and the whole staff for jumping in and trying to make it work as best it can for the kids.
Mr. Bear, would you like the board to approve it, or you just want to run with it?
No, I definitely want the board's support
Okay.
for this plan, because I think that, I think as much as we can be together on these items and show that we support each other, is really helpful in the discussions that will take place.
Would someone like to make a motion to approve this model?
I would move to approve Model 4, expanded hybrid A/B attendance to 4 days a week.
Second.
Are there any other questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion is carried.
I'd like to make a secondary motion, though.
Thank you.
I'd like to make a secondary motion that the board recognizes and feels the frustration of these times, and we salute the faculty here for coming to work every day and coming up with new ideas and trying to work around this dilemma that they've been doing.
Thank you, Jerry. The staff will appreciate it.
Well, on that point, this is model 4. It probably isn't the last model.
We're going to see Model 5, 6, and 7.
Carl, did you get what Jerry said? He made a motion on that. You want to repeat that, Jerry?
Sure. I'd just like to make a motion that the board recognizes the difficult times the staff is going through, and we salute you and thank you for your patience and your willingness to look at new ways to deal with this type of problem.
I'll second that. And we'll let Carl wordcraft that to make it sound
You can
right.
watch the video tomorrow.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying.
All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no opposition, so carried. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, then we have the early college credit program requests. Thank you, Julie. Mr. Bear, want to frame those up?
Yeah, I'm just asking Tracy what she thought. It's in your packet, and I believe that we should approve all of those requests with the exception of Introduction to Statistics, because that is a course that we offer here at Sevastopol. So that's student B, the fourth course down in those in your packet.
Richard?
I would move
So-
to approve the spring 2021 Start College Now application.
Second?
Did we accept student B?
That should be declined because that Introduction to Statistics is a
Right.
college course that we offer here. So they should take our course.
So do you want to,
So you want, yeah. I'm
do you want
doing
to add declining student B to that?
Yep, just be,
that. It'd be the third course.
third B.
Introductory statistics.
Okay, yes, I will do that.
Do you have that, Carl?
Yep.
Was there a second to that?
Yes, Jerry did.
Questions
Or
or
Richard did, I
discussion?
mean.
Sure.
Questions or discussion?
So you have a student taking 12 college credits here?
they're requesting 12 college credits.
Yeah.
They still have to be able to schedule those within their required high school classes.
So it's dependent upon scheduling and,
Yep,
but these are all offered though to their
Yes.
students here.
yeah, and we really can't decline them.
No, you can't by law,
No, but I'm just saying.
but you still have to approve them. If we offer it in-house, you don't have to approve it. If it's not offered in-house, so we have to.
The 12 credits is enough. I mean, 12 credits is almost a full college load.
It's
It is
getting to be more and more common.
Especially when you can do them virtually.
And higher education appreciates the law that supports it.
Any other questions or discussion on that? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried.
Yeah.
Then
Can I just discuss something? Our requests have gone down a little bit because we do offer the CAP courses that we added about 3 years ago, 2 or 3 years ago. So prior to that, now we are filling student schedules with college courses and credits, whereas before we didn't have as many options. But now we have several options for students to take college credit here in school that is provided by our staff.
By the staff.
Yep.
Do they have special certification for that?
They need, well, and they'll actually have to have a master's degree within, 2021?
Yeah, that's a big issue right now.
Yeah, it's been a big issue for about 3 years.
Put off till 2023 maybe because of COVID?
Was it extended because of COVID?
We've only heard 21.
No, it's been put off.
Okay, we
For
haven't
1 year.
received
I mean,
that.
that's a big issue at TC.
Yes.
And some of the schools are really fighting that. And, it's.
All the states are fighting it. It's not just a
Yeah,
Wisconsin
it's
issue.
the people coming out of Washington, they're all, the eggheads or whoever it is. It makes no sense, but,
So the colleges were able to certify teachers to teach their courses, and now they can only do so if they have a master's in that program area, which makes it really challenging because, for example, in the science areas, you need to have a master's degree in physics if you're going to offer your physics course for college credit. But that doesn't mean you can do it in chemistry, or you can do it in another course. So we are working with our staff, those that are interested to receive that certification, but like, for example, we may have a course on the books now, and then a teacher retires that has a certification, and then you can't hire somebody necessarily with a master's degree and understand in the same position. It really is a a challenge for school districts and technical colleges and colleges. I think they all struggle with it. So, sorry. go ahead.
No, that's okay, good, thank you for that information. We'll look for a motion then to accept the resignation of aide Lisa Morrison.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Warwick moved, Mrs. Saylor seconded to accept the resignation of Lisa Morrison. All in favor, questions or discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. We then have these first,
No,
okay, so I didn't,
you're missing the.
I'm missing. Okay, so we have resignations. Boys, can I have a motion to accept the boys varsity basketball coach resignation?
Move to approve the resignation of John Anderson, boys varsity basketball head coach.
Second.
Questions or discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. And then the middle school boys basketball coach resignation.
Move to approve the resignation of Dale Fuller, middle school boys basketball coach.
Second?
Questions or discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
For the sake of our audience, they should know both were concerned over the pandemic.
Both, for the sake of everyone listening out there, both of those resignations were due to concerns over managing the managing COVID requirements and possibly extending exposure to COVID into their families. So we're sorry to see them go. And then we would accept the retirement announcement of Dennis Peterson for 2022.
Move to approve the retirement of Dennis Peterson in maintenance for 2022.
Second to Den. Questions or discussion on Dennis?
Second it. Dennis, if you don't know that, he goes by first name Ted. You're wondering who that is, so, yeah.
Who was the
Thankfully,
second on
he's
that?
given us this much advance notice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's great.
If there are no other questions or discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Then we can look at policies and we'll just kind of go round table again. If Jerry, you'll start with the first motion, we'll just keep moving.
Oh, I move the first reading of policy 7440.01, video surveillance and electronic monitoring.
Second.
Questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried.
Move to approve the first reading of policy 7540.03, student technology, acceptable use and safety.
Second?
Questions or discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried.
Move to approve first reading of policy 7540.04, staff technology, acceptable use and safety.
Second.
Questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried.
Move to approve the first reading of policy 8146, notification of educational options.
Second?
Questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried.
Move to approve the first reading of policy 8310, public records.
Second.
Questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed,
Move to approve
Carried.
policy 8315, information management.
Second.
questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried.
Move to approve the first reading of policy 8320, personnel records.
Second.
Questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Move to approve first reading policy E320.01, unauthorized acquisition of staff personnel information.
Second.
Questions or discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Move to approve the first reading of policy 8330, student records.
Second.
Questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Move to approve the first reading of 8390, animals on district property.
Second.
Questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Move to approve policy 8800, religious patriotic ceremonies and observances.
Second.
Questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Move to approve first reading of policy 9130, public requests, suggestions, or complaints.
Second.
Questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Then we will hear about the proposed 2021-22 school calendar.
The 21-22 school calendar takes into account that the occupancy for students with construction won't be till Tuesday, September 7th, the day after Labor Day. It gives them the summer they need for construction. Where the hours of instruction will be met if we start school at 7:55 and end at 3:05 daily. We did build in a spring break. I built it and I ran past the admin team, which included not only Ms. Margraf and the two principals, but also Rock and Dan Petrina, Casey Andrews, Stephen was in the meeting, and Diane Genkline. So we worked on, I showed them what I had and then we made some adjustments. But it has hours of instructions we need. It also allows 5.73 snow days. We did build in a spring break the week of March 21st. Some staff prefer it, some don't, but we put one in. This year we don't have school on the day before Thanksgiving, but we do have it in this one because we start on September 7th. If we don't have that day, and where's the other one? Well, we don't have any half days in the schedule. Everything's full days. We have that so that we will be done with students on June 10th. Otherwise, we stretch that out to the next week, and then you're moving right into June and then summer school. So in order to get done in a decent time in June, knowing we're starting September 7th, we could do it with the spring break. Well, the other part is out on Easter is on the 15th of April this year. In this calendar here, we only take Good Friday off. In the past, we've sometimes taken the Monday after as well. We want to get back to get that day in, because if we don't, then you have to extend it further I don't think we want to be in school the week of June 13th. That's getting pretty late in the summer. So I think this calendar covers the majority of what we're looking for.
So are you just looking,
Well-
it's just kind of an informational piece for us tonight?
No, I'd like to get it approved sooner than later because of the fact that the band was supposed to go on their New York trip this year. Well, now they're looking at the 21-22 school year when they could go on their trip. Also, Mr. Hilbert, which is not a school trip, but it's pretty associated with us, has a trip to Washington DC on every other year basis. Well, now with band being pushed back a year, we're out of cycle with those two staying in alternating years. So they're looking for opportunities because they don't want to miss any kids getting the opportunities to go on those trips. And so they're we're going to end up doubling up in the 21-22 school year to get them back on cycle, because Mr. Hilbert takes incoming 8th graders and 8th graders that are exiting on that trip. Well, if he misses a year, then he's off, and band already is off because of this year. So the flexibility of having a spring break and allow them time to plan. We know some students will have to make a choice between the two trips, but that's the best we can do under this. So this calendar, they're looking for the calendar sooner than later so they can start doing their advanced planning. And like Ms. Hassenhager with the trip to New York, I don't even know if that's the destination she's going to look for in 21, 22, or she's going to look for an alternate trip, but she needs to start her planning. And Mr. Hilbert does have his destination, but he's looking at setting dates. So
I can't find that amended agenda, but the agenda I have only has this as a discussion item.
That's what it is on the amended agenda.
all right, well, then we'll discuss it tonight. We're having another meeting this month anyway, so I'll bring her back. Okay.
So we'll bring it back.
It'll probably be next week, I think.
Okay. And then we have discussion and possible action on the broadband tower grant that Mr. Wolfle referenced tonight.
He brought you up to the speed that I'm at on the project.
A couple things. A little history. 2 years ago, and I can't speak for the town of Sturgeon Bay because I haven't followed them so closely. So, because we have the city wards, which, you know, they get chartered. So we've got the 4 towns. So I can't speak as the town of Sturgeon Bay. But Jacksonport and Sevastopol got out of the Door County Tower Ordinance 2 years ago. They got out of it because they didn't want the requirements for the towers. Sevastopol remains in it. They haven't gotten out yet. There are these grants out there for broadband towers, and both Egg Harbor and Jacksonport applied this February, for money, but none came to them. It went to south to Forestville and $1 million to the village of Egg Harbor. But both of those towns, for 2 years now, have reserved $75,000 in their budget for towers. And they have, they've identified their locations. They've talked to landowners, they know where their towers are going, they've got their locations. And Jacksonport got a $101,000 grant just recently under the COVID Act to put up its core tower, because they're shovel ready, because they've got the place, they've got the lease, they've got everything. So that one will be up by the end of the year. And they're applying for additional grants through, can't remember what it is, Jerry, but there are grants out there.
For the Department of Agriculture. Yeah.
Is that the Public Service Commission?
I think it's the Public Service Commission. So they're applying for additional grants. So Jacksonport, for instance, would have it's got its one core tower, and then it's applying for 2 other towers, one that would cover the western part of the town and one that would cover the eastern part of the town, plus some of the town of Sevastopol over by Clark Lake. Egg Harbor is applying for theirs to cover theirs, and some of it would go into Jacksonport. So I think we need to talk to all of the towns to see if they're all on the same, before Sevastopol can commit money to this, if we're going to, we need to talk to the towns, have a meeting with the town chairmen to see where are you, what are you doing, what is your coverage going to be, and what is your expectation, what are the towers going to cost? Because can we give money from our school district when we don't have a plan?
The county board has through action with the tower height, they have reduced that, haven't they? County board's taking action on that. You spoke of, the restrictions on putting in broadband towers because the height was, that the county board is already active.
county board, the county board, the planning commission wanted to reduce the height of privately owned towers from 100 feet to 50 feet, I think. Then I went to which can't even get above tree level. And then when that hit the county board threw that out and moved it up to like 120 to 140 feet. The dilemma is, when I was still working in, or a year after, I was on the Economic Development Council's IT committee. And what this all we talked about was our broadband. For whatever reason, certain people in the county government, both elected and paid, have something up their craw about Wi-Fi. And so they made a very narrow interpretation of state statute. State statute has a whole bunch of rules about towers, okay? But they are silent on Wi-Fi towers. But the county, in its wisdom, decided they would take the same regulations they have on cell phone towers, all that, and pass that on to Wi-Fi towers. So therefore, Door County is way, way behind. Maybe they would have acted differently if COVID was coming, but the COVID experience has now shown how horrible Wi-Fi is in Door. So as a result, it started with Liberty Grove and they voted out of the tower ordinance.
They voted out.
And then it came down the county, down the peninsula, and so last year the two towns just north of us opted out of it. So then the pressure finally, what happened with Sevastopol, I don't know why they did not, but they chose not to. But now they're already, they're going to sever themselves from the county ordinance. So I agree with what you're saying. What really needs to be done is pressure needs to be put on the county of Door to change their dumb ordinance on Wi-Fi and become the leader in providing Wi-Fi services to all the people in Door County. This doing it town by town by town is not going to be successful. I mean, it's
Egg Harbor is exempt because they're not part of the uniform zoning.
right. They are.
So Egg Harbor can do what they want to do.
Right, and the other counties, the other towns now north of us can do what they want to with towers, because they've exited out of because the ordinance for towers allowed individual towns to exit.
Okay.
So Sevastopol is now, Jeannie Vogel, who chairs that committee, is really moving strong, and she, so all what you're left right now is, until the county wakes up and does something differently, it's a piecemeal thing. I think what they're looking for, the most important thing they need is the endorsement from the school board, so they put that on their application that we're endorsing. Dollar and cent wise, if you want to give them a token $1,000, I guess that's, so they can say that we've also invested it in, with coin too.
But since I always had kind of I always had the question of transferring from one taxing entity to another. But we do it for the town park very easily, so I guess there's no regulations or laws
Because
against.
we're purchasing the service, the use of their ball diamonds, so that's why we do that.
So under this
That's a
broadband
purchase
power,
service.
if we were to commit money, we would use the same premise as we do for the town park.
Correct.
Be open above board about this. I've been on the phone with Jeannie Vogel about this, and then she was texting me back and forth. And then I told her all I knew is there's confusion over how much they want, and then this issue about they've got money left over from COVID that they can give to us, and I said to her, I didn't think that was legal. And then supposedly, then I got a call from him, and he told me that he's discussed with you, and they've got $15,000, and they've checked it out with their legal counsel, that they can give us money for stuff that we've already paid for to replenish what we did. So if you spent $20,000, I think they got like $35,000.
They have 35,000, but, and CISA 7 has contacted us and said that you can do that. We've had over $100,000 in COVID-related expenses, but most of our COVID-related expenses would not, it's a recovery for the townships or municipalities. And not all of the expenses we've had are claimable, and so we'll submit it to the town will submit it to the state, and then the state will tell us whether they're gonna reimburse it or not, but we don't know that.
Right.
Right. So it's not,
Automatic.
it's not guaranteed money, and it's about 35,000, and we've spent 100,000, not counting our nursing contract and the AIDS time, which we've increased to do cleaning and student coverage during all of this. So it's a portion, but it's not a guaranteed portion at this point.
I should have asked the question to Ned, I didn't ask him, but the way I understand it, then they would be the town would be looking to receive that back toward the grant.
I don't
We
think
don't know.
so.
Well, they've never said how much they're looking for the school district to put towards the grant. And so I don't know if the grant, if the Public Service Commission, when they look at the grant, if they look at $1,000 and say, well, that's not really skin in the game like Dan referred to, or what they consider significant.
Well, I think by virtue of the area of the town of Sevastopol, we have a much better chance than some of the smaller towns do. I think Sevastopol is what, second largest area in the county?
Right, and it has some really unique Wi-Fi issues. He says, well, it's about okay on the two shores. That's not correct. Where I live, we don't have cell phone, hardly, and we don't have Wi-Fi, unless you put up your own tower, which I did. The county ordinance actually in the beginning, refused to allow me to share, that our neighbors could get Wi-Fi off of our tower. We could have it ourselves, but we weren't allowed to let other people get it. Some way, Door County Broadband got around that, so they rent the tower from me, and I don't live there, you know.
I think I would agree with Jerry, that a letter of cooperation and intent is probably the best.
Well, did the other towns ask you for that last year?
No one's asked for money for it.
Not money, letters
The
of
yes,
support.
I've written letters of support before. Yes, I have. But no monetary input.
Yeah, I think at this point, that's the way to go.
I mean, to commit any kind of funds, I guess right now would be difficult, and especially with the referendum coming.
Yeah, I agree.
But we really don't know that much about it. If you listen to what he said, they're gonna apply for this at the end of November, which gives us time to say, well, we'll give you a letter of endorsement, we're just gonna need more information from you. And then you can say, have much more information to make a decision. There's not enough information to make a decision on dollars, but I think we know enough to make a decision on donor support.
Well, the other municipalities, when they asked last year, I didn't come to the board with it. The only reason I brought this to the board was because he was looking for financial as well, because I wrote the letters without, because why would we not support more broadband in Door County for our students? But this is a different.
As an aside though, I really, I don't know how you can, I think the Gibraltar and Sevastopol need to get together and really apply pressure on the county to get off the trenches and do something about this.
The school district should?
Yes, I mean, you have the evidence now that the kids in the northern parts of the county are suffering from more with COVID because they don't have Wi-Fi. And this should not be happening in, you know, I used to talk about this in meetings at hospital meetings. I used to say, you know, I live in this supposedly posh county, you know, and we don't even have Wi-Fi, you know. People always think, oh, you must have broadband cables going all over the place. And that's not true. I mean, it's a really complicated issue. It got off the whole thing got off the mark wrong with the federal government. And if they would have treated electricity and like they're treating Wi-Fi, you would never have electricity throughout the county, because it's totally done on a profit mode. The rural electrification was allowing the formation of co-ops. That's what the county, I'm getting off the track, but that's what the county's going to have to be willing to do, is form a county-wide co-op for the delivery of Wi-Fi. Now, the Wi-Fi companies are going to fight that, but they can still contract with them, I guess. I don't understand all that stuff. But that's the only way to get this off the bottom. Or there's going to be a long road, and your house is back there, and nobody's going to bring you Wi-Fi. And then there's the resistance of towers. But, Wi-Fi's become like electricity and phone service. You can't live without it. Now in education, it's even more important. And healthcare, right? Because they should talk about this just from how you're going to see your doctor through Wi-Fi, except, I'll give you one example. There's an individual who I know, a very, very good friend of mine, and he lived on Bayshore Drive, and he had some health problems, and he was monitored on a daily basis by his cardiologist in Milwaukee. His house burnt down. So he was forced to move around the quarry about a mile from where he lived. He now then had to go to .org, which is totally useless for that, because everything stops on that side of the peninsula, everything stops at the quarry. Because nobody wanted to spend the money to dig a cable, a line, a hole around the trench around. Now here's where things get really, and if I'm...
No, that's okay. Tell us.
So where there's no coordination in the county is the gas company put a new gas line all the way down Bayshore Drive to the city, came north and decided to go all the way to the end of Little Harbor, on the north side of Little Harbor, and it stops right now, with plans, I think, probably further go up Bayshore Drive. So they're going around the quarry, the pit's open, they're, clawing through all this rock, they're putting down their gas line. You think anybody would coordinate, like, why don't we put cable there too, while it's there? We just come in and drop it in, so that's all that. So there's no coordination of any of this type of stuff. And that's where the county needs to take a hold of this and say, we're going to be responsible, we're going to organize Wi-Fi, or but that's why the schools need it. They're a really important thing. When we had a meeting, when they tried to amend the counties to make it more restrictive, that was on the phone because of COVID, and all these different school districts, and you guys sent in letters about it, and then the chairman, I forget his name of the committee, they had it all worked out. Well, we're going to reduce the size of the towers down to 50 feet. You can do it without any type of, and I said, well, 50 feet you won't get above the trees, because the biggest inhibitor of Wi-Fi when you do it by towers is trees. Please, because of water and wood. And I said, that's not going to work. He says, well, it may not, but your neighbor will be happy that he doesn't have a big tower. So that's all about towers, I got mine, so I didn't know what else has that. I spoke to him, but.
Well, I did talk to Door County Broadband a couple of weeks ago, and because we have some families that don't have internet, and they said if I gave them the address, they could tell me either no, that family will not get service, or they could give me a maybe, but they will not give me a definite yes until they did the install. They said that we will never tell. I said, what is it, the house on the left and the house on the right both have it? Would you guarantee the house in between? They said, nope, we will not do it until it's installed, because it has to be a maybe, because you don't know about the tree line and the exact lie of the land. They said it's so.
The new tower is supposed, as new technology, that's supposed to be able to go through the leaves. We'll see if that works. I agree with Jerry that some pressure should be put on the county, and we've got county board representatives from our district. Elizabeth Gauger is Egg Harbor, and
well, as I talked to him last night, or this afternoon, he said, I don't know why he doesn't do it, but he said, yeah, he said, we've got, the towns north, when Sevastopol is, done, we're gonna have all these towns that have 2 representatives on the county board. That's a majority of the county board. They should be able to say, we want this changed because they've got the majority vote. Because they've all pulled out of the tower business, the tower ordinance. Good. So,
But in the meantime, these towns are gonna work on these towers and they'll help some of our kids probably.
Well, and the good thing is, Mr. Bear's plan here does have the kids on there coming to school to get more
Right.
service here. I mean, so
you have cable, you have fiber here, don't you?
Steven tells us what we have.
Yeah, we've got gigabit wireless, or we've got a gigabit line from WISCNet. So that's dark fiber that runs up the highway.
Right.
That's a countywide,
Yep.
we're on a countywide network.
Yep.
So do you feel you need a motion on this direction?
I can write a letter of support with, that's nice if there's a motion for that, but I don't need it. I would write a letter without that. It was the financial part, and I wasn't going to spend any money till I got it.
I make a motion that we endorse the town's efforts in securing a grant from the, what's it, Department of Agriculture, or you don't remember?
Public Service
Public Service Commission, I
Public
think it
Service
is.
Commission grant. And that we will review a financial donation during the next month. Commitment.
Donation's always bad.
Is there a second for that?
Second.
I would disagree that we review it the next month. I want to know, I want a plan. I want a plan from the towns to tell us what they're gonna do before we commit any money.
Oh,
Well,
see, the issue is this, is see, the money that you put in the pot, that's what's gonna be, so if you put in 10,000, that'll give you another 10,000 to get the grant. See, it's being matched by, and then the county's supposed to throw some money. I think, Lisa, I think that the meaning behind that part of my motion is to allow you till next time to ask all the
Think about
questions.
it, okay. Any other questions or discussion?
Maybe you should read the motion.
Yeah.
You ready to
Actually, I'm
motion,
gonna
Carl?
watch the video to get the motion. I mean, I have a gist of it. To offer a letter of endorsement to the town of Sevastopol in support of the broadband tower grant, or in support of application of the broadband tower grant and reviews of financial support at a later date. Does that work? Okay.
Questions or discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion is carried, and that concludes the regular business for the evening. I'll look for a motion to convene into executive session.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote, Jerry.
Aye.
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 Motion carried at 9:12 PM. Thank you.